I have a quick clip for you here today between Matt Goodwin and a left-wing political commentator called Fahima Mohamed. Now, it did erupt into a bit of a shouting match, if you will, and I just wanted to cover it briefly, not really to cover the he said, she said type of inflection type video, but what I really wanted to do was use this moment and analyse Fahima and just to discuss the concept of political realignment, because I think this is an important example of what happens when a political realignment happens, and indeed what is a political realignment that everyone keeps talking about. So first of all, here's the clip here. We've got Matt Goodwin on GB News, and these two kind of go at it. There was a much longer clip which you can find on the internet, but this is in essence the boiled down version of what these people were saying.
So easy to just criminalize them and make them all when they are actually also very vulnerable.
Fahima, your starting point is always, what about the rights and the sense of fairness for people who are coming from outside of the country who are breaking our law? I'm sorry,
they're not all breaking the law. They're not all breaking the law.
You live in some fantasy land.
No, you live in a very different land.
The British culture is based on the notion of fair play, which is if people come into the country,
which is humanitarian as well, refuge, and it's also Christian for you to also not be so hostile like you and talk like you and put everyone in that sort of boat like they are.
300,000 refugees in recent years, and you're sat there saying that we are not humanitarian. What planet are you living on?
I'm saying what you're saying now is not humanitarian.
What, that we should control our own borders? That's not right.
I'm saying that we should obviously control our own borders.
Right.
No one's saying that we shouldn't.
You are.
But the way you're saying it, you're taking me out of context. I'm saying the way you're saying is that when they're coming in, or if they're coming in, they're all criminals. They're all wrong. They're all going to do something. They're all taking our money. They're all there because they just want economic sort of gain. It's not like that for everyone. And even if they want to, they want a better life because their houses, their countries are being bombed. Their countries are being bombed.
Then countries safe and legal routes. Don't break the law.
So easy for you to say when your family is not being, bombed and they're not actually being
asked to pay for the crisis. I'm a taxpayer.
So
I work hard. Everyone watching this show.
So am I.
Right. So why should those people be asked to spend billions of pounds every year on a crisis that their leaders refuse to fix?
Well, then it's not their fault. It is the politicians' fault to get it right and to get those processes
let's fix
right.
The crisis.
Yes, the crisis, but don't just blame the sort of migrants that are coming.
Now you'll see there that Fahima hit on all of the major notes, if you like, there very quickly. She's a very, very assertive communicator, certainly not scared to stand up and take the fight. And I do like that about people when they are, incorrigible and not going to back down. So fair play to her in that respect. Some of the things that she was saying, though, are all of these left-wing talking points that have been there forever and a day. And these type of commentators get so used to saying them, they can just kind of stream of consciousness, just throw these things out. And what tends to happen when people like Fahima talk, they'll just group all of these things together, and it has the effect of a little bit like a boxing match where you feel repeated jabs there without any knockout punch ever really showing itself. But just to kind of cover what she was saying, these immigrants are being branded, it's all their fault, don't blame migrants, the poor families out there freeing being bombed, British values are all humanitarian, and as good Christians, surely you would want to let in millions of people into your country who you had no idea who they were, and all of that. These arguments have been played out time and time again in the media, and I'm sure we're all sick and tired now of listening to them, and that's precisely part of what this political realignment means. And so what is, in essence, a political realignment? Now, there is an economic historian called Steve Davies, who's been posting for quite a while now that the UK is going through a political realignment. And his idea, I think, is a very, very good one. And it's a basic idea that says this, that people are essentially divided into political tribes across a couple of axes. Okay, so there tends to be a dominant and a secondary, but still highly important. And so until recently, it's been economics. So that was the dividing line, and that's been there forever and a day. So, where you stood on economics was extremely important. So if you were on the right of politics, it was something along the lines of, I like low taxes and limited government spending and free markets. And those people on the other side of the argument, they want high levels of financial redistribution, government intervention, active state telling you what to do, etc. The wagging finger of the nanny state is all good. And of course, the secondary axis and the secondary arguments to that are that social and personal freedoms are very important. Gay marriage. Should we, have a sugar tax? Should we stop people having cans of pop? What about the death sentence for murder and tougher prison sentences? And is the nuclear family important? And all of this. And there's a lot of subdivisions fall down from that. And what we've been finding for a long time is that most of the political parties, such as people from the West, those political parties have largely been battling it out through those axes that I've just discussed there. And what happens every once in a while, and it does take a fairly long time for this to happen, but over longer stretches of time, what happens, there's a realignment about what that dominant dividing line is. And so every once in a while, something will happen, and, the tectonic plates will have a major shift, and it will happen quite quickly. And what we're experiencing now is the major political parties are struggling to reposition themselves due to what is becoming the number one issue. And so what is the number one issue? Well, the number one issue at the moment isn't the economy. That's kind of paling away. And for a long time it's the economy stupid. But that's not what it is. Right at this moment now, it's all about nationhood and identity. And what we were watching there with Fahima, and what we were watching there in Matt Goodwin's responses, Fahima is part of the old arguments, and it's been done so often that she can actually just roll these things off her tongue quite easily. And that is the old axis, the old political narratives that's playing out. And what's actually happened is the political narrative has moved on, and people like Fahima are just an irrelevance now. She can stand and shout from the hilltops as much as she wants to do that, but most of the people in this country are starting to come around to a new way of thought. Even people like Keir Starmer have started to notice this, and they're trying to swivel and drastically reposition themselves in this new paradigm that's happened. But these huge political parties like Labour, like the Tories, even people like the Democrats in America, and a lot of the parties in Europe, they are hopelessly out of touch with the public. And this is a thing that's been happening more and more, where people say, oh, the governments are out of touch, they don't know. And that's correct. Major political parties throughout the West are completely out of touch with the people. And that's been going on for a while. And after a period of time, it's just happened so much that people kind of take it for granted. But that's not what the ultimate result of it will be. The ultimate result of that will be that there's already been a political realignment, and enter reform, And other people, you know, possibly something like Ben Habib's party or whatever it is, Rupert Loan Ben Habib, or, you know, you've got Reform here, and there's going to be other parties start to re-emerge because the old parties have lost their way. They are not realigning along these new dominant axis here of identity and nationhood. And what's happened, we've gone far too far to the left of politics, and what's happening, that pendulum has already reached its peak and it's starting to come back, and it's now reaching the point where it's speeding up, and we're going to be moving very, very, very quickly to a more right-wing framing in our nationhood, in our status, and in how we feel about identity. And this was always going to happen. This was the natural swing back. And the left is struggling to cope with it because nobody really cares. As a recent survey said, most people in this country want immigration under 100,000. It's as simple as that. And in all of the polls, and every time people are asked, they all say the same thing. And it doesn't matter how much we hear in the media, like people like Fahima ramming this message down our throats. No one's buying it anymore because we're moving to the right. And for all those people who are worried about immigration just the same as I am, and yes, it is a concern, and yes, our country is being ripped and torn on a fundamental level, I would say to those people there is hope, because the pendulum's swinging back, and at some point the politicians are going to have to get on board. And you see Keir Starmer trying to do it. It's not possible. His party is an old party. You see Kemi Badenoch try to do it, and even recent posts by the Tories, like not one more illegal immigrant. Like, we've sat and watched you abuse our borders and our people for 14 years, and they're just coming out with posts like this. It's not going to work. The Labour Party and the Tory Party are not going to be able to reposition themselves. It's impossible for them to do that, and that's why parties like Reform and other parties which are going to follow them are going to change the face of British political debate forever. Anyway, thanks very much for your time. I do appreciate it.